Hey, what is up, guys? It's your boy back with another reaction video. This time we are going to be watching a video called Grocery Prices Are Not Coming Back Down by a channel called Established Context. He makes pretty good videos. They're usually really well researched. So he's going to be talking about grocery prices and why we are screwed. So it should be interesting. Let's check it out. Let's see what we can learn.
Nearly every grocery store category is more expensive today than it was.
Food prices started rising rapidly during COVID, and since then, food inflation has slowed, but prices are still going up.
That is despite promises from then-candidate Donald Trump that he would get food prices down if elected. He didn't.
So let's get into why grocery prices are skyrocketing again, and why the future of them isn't likely to bring much relief. August of this year saw the largest month-over-month increase in food at home prices since August of 2022. While it may not sound like a lot at just 0.6%, it's really the year-over-year increase of 3.2% on top of the already elevated increases that we've seen over the last few years. Now, to be clear, when the Bureau of Labor Statistics says food, they are including food away from home, which is restaurants, fast food, etc. And food at home is grocery prices. So while food at home is up 2.7% year over year, food away from home is up almost 4% year over year, which is...
See, that's why motherfuckers ain't going to restaurants, bro. What the hell? You want to raise your prices 4% each year? Yeah, you ain't seen me ever again, bro. You know, it's crazy. It'll be like, if you raise your prices 4%, that's 4% less when it's time when we go in there. So have fun with that. But that shit is wild. And the first time it's been this bad in like 3 years. To be fair, I don't know because obviously 3 years is not the longest amount of time. So I don't know if the amount that the prices have gone up by relative to the record time span that we're looking at is like crazy or not. Right? Because if it's something like, oh, like this is the longest done in like 20 years or something like that, like 20 just kind of like grabs your attention more. So I don't know if food prices, like the scale of them is such that they basically shouldn't be rising like barely ever. That 3 years is still considered like a long time. I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense.
Brutal when eating out already felt unaffordable for most people. Now remember, the Federal Reserve's target inflation rate is 2%. So when we break down some of these costs a bit further, year over year, coffee is up almost 21%, beef is up nearly 14%, and eggs are up almost 11%.
Gosh, damn. Okay, that probably... See, now those are numbers that grab my attention more. Fuck.
Fruits and vegetables overall were up 2.3% year over year, but certain ones like apples were up over 9.5%, while bananas were up over 6.5%.
What's the tariff on bananas? Americans, by the way, love bananas. We buy billions of them a year.
The tariff on bananas would be representative of the countries that produce.
And what's that tariff?
Generally 10%.
Correct, 10%. Walmart has already increased the cost of bananas by 8%.
But as countries do deals with us, that will go to zero. As countries do deals with us, that will
But the
go
cost
to
is on
zero.
the American consumer now and on the businesses with the confusion now.
There's no uncertainty. If you build in America and you produce your product in America, there will be no tariff.
We can't
So the
produce
concept
bananas in
of
America.
building in America and paying no tariff is very, very clear.
We cannot
Fighting for
build
your
bananas in
stocks.
America.
Now, until Howard Lutnick teaches the rest of us how to grow bananas domestically, I think we got to expect higher prices here. But here's the bigger picture in all seriousness. When we zoom out, we know that after COVID, both grocery store prices and restaurant prices have been up a lot. This isn't an issue that was exclusive to the United States. Every country dealt with some form of inflation after the pandemic. But since 2020, grocery prices are up almost 30% in the US, while food away from home is up even more than that. All of this has been compounding year after year, and month-to-month numbers don't capture the cumulative hit. So I often find when discussing the month-over-month or even year-over-year price increases, it sometimes feels like the broader context is missing because every price increase just stacks on top of that last one, making the cost of living even more unmanageable throughout the country. So what's driving the current price increases? Well, there's no single reason, but one of the biggest culprits is tariffs. Foods the US can't grow, like coffee, bananas, and others, get hit with import taxes when they come from abroad. In 2024, Brazil supplied the US with about 35% of its imported coffee beans, nearly $2 billion worth. And since the US can't grow coffee domestically, at least not at scale, that dependence means tariffs hit immediately. Importers are now paying a 50% tariff on Brazilian coffee, introduced by Trump for no good reason. On top of that, other countries that supply the US with coffee, like Vietnam, Colombia, Ethiopia, and others, face tariffs as well. While not as high as 50%, they are still substantial price hikes from even just last year. And recently, Brazilian exports have fallen off a cliff, down 46% in August. This is going to continue to have impacts on pricing throughout the country. Now, beef prices are also surging right now, becoming one of the biggest pain points for consumers. Supply is extremely tight. The US cattle herd has fallen to multi-decade lows after years of drought and high feed costs. And the USDA says inventories as of mid-2025 remain historically depressed. Tight supply plus steady demand means record beef prices that are still moving higher. In July, the BLS noted that the beef and veal category was roughly 11% higher year over year, and August just showed another jump month over month. And when you add in elevated feed, fuel, and labor costs, rebuilding that herd takes years, not months. That's why the USDA expects retail beef prices to remain stubbornly high well into 2026. And this is where Trump's promise to lower prices really breaks down. On the 2024 campaign trail, he said he would actually lower grocery prices for American families multiple times, mind you. He literally declared, we are going to bring those prices way down.
Everything is bad, and we're going to straighten it out. We're going to bring prices.
See, I'm even kind of curious. What exactly did people expect him to do? And even here's a dumbass too. How did he think he was going to do that? See, this is what I'm saying. Like, this is why when politicians tell you things, they need to be actually explain their process behind how they're going to accomplish the things that they're telling you. Because remember, this is the same guy that was talking about how he had a quote-unquote concept of a plan. And I'm assuming lowering these grocery prices was not in that concept.
This is way down, and we're going to get it done fast. It'll also bring your grocery bill way down.
But shortly after he was elected during an interview with Time magazine, he admitted the opposite. He said, quote, "It's very hard to bring things down once they're up." Now, he's not wrong there. Despite walking it back after the fact, it is quite unrealistic for presidents on their own to be able to lower prices of things like groceries. Of course, policies can and do affect certain prices, but presidents don't have some dial under their desk to turn up or down. However, with that said, what they do have the power to do instead is enact policies that wind up raising prices, and that's precisely what he has done with tariffs and this trade war. Economists from the Yale Budget Lab have estimated Trump's tariffs will cost U.S. households about $2,400 this year. Now, obviously, this isn't all from groceries, but it does go to show you that cheaper prices aren't coming. And yet the pitch worked because people clearly wanted to believe that tariffs meant lower costs, when the reality is tariffs function much more like a sales tax. They make imports more expensive, and that filters through the supply chain to things like coffee, bananas, and even fertilizers that the U.S. needs to grow crops here domestically. So instead of easing the inflation pressure on families, tariffs only added another layer to it. Now, while certain grocers have been saying to their investors that they are absorbing some of these tariffs and trying not to pass on the full price increases to their customers, I think those days are numbered. One of the main reasons businesses have been absorbing some of the tariffs is because these tariffs haven't been implemented in a straightforward manner. They've been on, then off, then on, then they've gone up, then down, and now they're headed to the Supreme Court to see if they're actually legal. So retailers have held back on passing on the full amount to customers because if the tariffs revert, the retailers don't want to have to then lower prices. But make no mistake, retailers are not eating all of the tariffs, and they're likely to eat much less of them, especially if the courts rule that they can stay. Now, another factor that is sort of a hidden driver here is shrinkflation. It's not as obvious as the headline CPI number, but consumers definitely feel it. Cereal boxes are thinner, chip bags have more air than product, and even drinks have been quietly downsized a few ounces.
The fact that manufacturers continue to find new ways to shrink products that have already been downsized.
See, that's crazy. And that's definitely not going to help. So you're essentially paying more for less. It's tragic.
Sized, according to Consumer World's Ed Dworsky.
There's almost no category of product except eggs, maybe, that hasn't been downsized over the past years.
Companies like PepsiCo and General Mills leaned on this tactic heavily over the last few years, pairing it with outright price hikes. Executives openly admitted they had pricing power, meaning people kept buying even at higher prices. And once corporations saw consumers adapt, they had no real incentive to roll prices back until, of course, demand slows. I did a whole video on shrinkflation earlier in the year, and you can check that out if you want. But I just have to say, it's quite a disgusting tactic that is becoming more and more common these days. Now, another factor here is labor. This is something that is baked into what you pay at the register. Agriculture has long been hit by chronic worker shortages, especially for seasonal harvesting, and wages for farm labor have risen sharply over the years. The American Farm Bureau warns that producers can't find enough labor, and reports show agricultural labor costs in 2025 are forecasted at over $53 billion. Immigration crackdowns are only making this worse. An article from Foodprint in August of this year notes that ICE raids and stricter enforcement are increasing fear among undocumented and documented workers alike, and they're reducing the available workforce as a result. Another recent analysis suggested that over 500,000 immigrants losing work authorization could further reduce supply and push food prices up. Some projections put that increase at 14.5% over 2024 to 2028.
See, I guess this makes sense too, right? Because when I think what people also don't realize is when you pay for things, like he said, you're not just paying for the product that you're getting, you're paying for the labor that went into making said product in the first place. And with everything that's going on right now, like that labor is going to have to increase despite the fact that there's less people to do said labor. So the labor becomes harder and thus you produce less, which would technically, I guess, increase demand. And then that's how you would also have further price increases. And then that's on top of the the tariffs that are already going to strain prices in the first place. So it's crazy when you add all these things up. Like, I'm surprised 0.6% is the only amount that the general grocery prices, food prices increased by, just even between the year to year thing. And I would be curious to see what the farmer labor numbers were last year, right? Because technically this year's not finished yet. So, and you would only expect immigration to ramp up in terms of like grabbing people. So I would expect those numbers to go down even next year as well. And then on top of that, I'd also be curious to see what the food imports were looking like last year, like in terms of how many, like how high of a percentage of the stuff that Americans eat are imported from other places.
For food and related goods. And lastly, there's a weather and water problem. California grows nearly half of all US vegetables and over 3/4 of its fruits and nuts, but several parts of the state have faced sharply reduced water.
What the hell? Why? That's kind of funny. Why the fuck are we growing most of our veggies in a state that be getting forest fires every like 3 minutes, bro? Is that not crazy? Am I bugging? Am I bugging? Maybe I'm bugging.
Allocations, making it much harder for farmers to keep output steady. And it's not just California, because droughts, heat waves, and floods across the US and abroad have all cut into harvests and disrupted supply chains. The end result is all the same: tighter supply and higher prices passed directly onto the consumer. So when you put all of this together, tariffs, shrinkflation, labor costs, weather shocks, and corporate greed, you see why food inflation feels relentless. It's not just one factor, it's a stack of pressures hitting simultaneously, amplified worse by corporations having little incentive to give up the margins that they gained over the previous years. Now, I want to be clear, I'm not saying the sky is falling, but when politicians promise to bring prices down, the reality is harsh. Food almost never gets cheaper. The best we can realistically hope for is slower growth, or at least policies that don't make the situation worse. But in today's environment, the odds of your grocery bill actually shrinking are basically zero.
Yeah, and I think too, when politicians say that, I think it also the service that they do is that they make it sound like it's a simple process to accomplish that, right? And then it kind of just juxtaposes it with other administrations, and people start thinking, oh, like, why haven't you done this? When they don't realize just how many factors go into the food that we get, the prices that are set for said food, and the ability for us to access the food. So, right, like, because you look at the amount of things the amount of factors this guy has listed, and it's like, where would you even start? Would you start with increasing labor domestically? Would you start with, not pissing off your fellow countries that supply you food so they don't hike up the prices? Would it start with, trying to influence the corporations in some way to stop uh, shrinking down their products and stop hiking up the prices for less food, right? Like, there's so many different things to attack. It's like, bro, like, I don't even know where you would begin.
Now, if you enjoyed this video and you want to learn about America's new debt trap,
Okay, so that seems to be the end of this video. Yeah, no, I thought that was really interesting. It was really, really well done, really well researched. Yeah, like, I think when it comes to groceries, like the guy said, the best thing we can hope for right now is just that the hikes don't get absurdly worse. Like you said, we're only 9 months into the year, and so we haven't even really felt the full brunt of it yet. And then I shudder to think what is going to go on, especially when you consider we have in the upcoming months is going to be, Thanksgiving, Christmas. There's going to be lots of traveling. It's going to be less work being done. The weather's going to get cold for like half the country. Right, like, people are going to be using buying more groceries than ever for their dinners and stuff. So I can't imagine what it's going to end up looking like just in the next coming months, let alone what's going to look like in the upcoming year. But yeah, that's going to be it for this video. If please go check out the original video. I'll try to leave the link in the description. And if you enjoyed it, just subscribe to the channel. And most importantly of all, remember to have a good day.